Life is not a garden of peace. It is a battlefield. Every day you will face ambushes of pain, betrayal, failure, and the hidden wars within your own mind. If you wish to rebuild yourself, you cannot be ruled by blind emotions. You must learn to think like a ruthless strategist, calm, clear, and unshaken, even when the world crumbles around you. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He did not write this from luxury or comfort, but in the midst of war, illness, and personal loss. Marcus was not without feelings. He was a warrior of the mind, who knew that emotions rise and fall like waves, but reason is the steady ship that carries us through the storm. If you are broken today, remember this: you can rebuild yourself with the steel discipline of a Stoic strategist. Like a warrior who does not bow to fate, but rises with reason as his sharpest weapon. See life not as a storm, but as a chessboard. A storm is wild, merciless, and beyond control. One moment skies are clear, and the next, everything collapses beneath you. Most people react as the storm demands. They panic, they lash out, they run toward false comfort. But the strategist does not. The Stoic warrior does not waste energy screaming into the wind. He does not let fear toss him from side to side. Instead, he sees every move as a step in the great game of life. The storm is not avoided, it is endured, and within it, he plays his strategy. This is not because life is just or fair. It is not because fate spares him its cruelty. He suffers the same storms as everyone else, but his power lies in his mind. Where others see chaos, he sees a field of moves. Where others surrender, he stands ready. And while the world drowns in fear, the strategist steadies his hand and makes his next move. The strategist studies the board, observes the pieces, and calmly plans his next move. This mindset does not arise by chance. It is built, forged through discipline. The ordinary mind is wired for survival, to react, to seek comfort, to run from pain. But the strategist is different. He is trained to pause, to observe, to think several steps ahead. When hardship arrives, he does not collapse into the question, "Why me?" Instead, he sharpens his focus and asks, "What is my next move?" The difference may seem small, but it is everything. For it is not about having every answer, but having the discipline to look for them deliberately, not desperately. The Stoics mastered this art. They knew we cannot control what life throws at us, but we can control how we see it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This is not just philosophy, it is strategy. Events are neutral. It is our judgment that makes them blessings or curses. A job loss is not an ending. A betrayal is not the death of trust. A setback is not true failure. These are simply moves in the larger game, and the meaning we assign to them decides whether we are destroyed by chaos or rise with purpose. Picture this. Two people lose their jobs on the same day. The first collapses beneath the weight of fear, drowning in resentment. They think only of what has been taken, blaming the economy, their boss, and even fate itself. Helplessness consumes them, dragging them deeper into anxiety, offering no escape. But the second, the strategist, faces the same loss with a different mind. He feels the same shock, but does not surrender to it. Instead, he breathes, observes with clarity, and asks the only question that matters. What now? Which of my skills must be sharpened? What new doors might this closing force me to open? Not to escape emotion, but to rise above it with reason. That is the discipline of the strategist. He takes his notebook, rewrites his goals, and studies the battlefield of life with precision. Every setback becomes data, every loss becomes instruction. Like a general after defeat, he reassesses the terrain, not to mourn what was lost, but to prepare for what is yet to be gained. This is not coldness, it is courage sharpened by logic. It is the path of one who lives by Stoic philosophy, unbroken by circumstance, rising from ruins with the mind of a rational warrior. To see life as a chessboard is not to deny emotion, but to master it. The ruthless strategist is not unfeeling, he is unshaken. He does not banish grief or frustration, but he places them under discipline. To him, emotions are advisors, not dictators. They may whisper warnings or lessons, but they do not command his actions. This capacity to step back, to assess rather than react, is central to both strategic brilliance and Stoic strength. It is not detachment, it is dominion over the self. The Stoic warrior refuses to be a victim of fate. He becomes its student. He reads the language of chaos, finding patterns where others see only confusion. He discovers possibility in collapse, opportunity in endings. Where the common mind sees disaster, he sees decisions waiting to be made. This is the wisdom of Epictetus, who taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The storm may rage, but the Stoic does not curse the sky. He finds shelter in his principles, and from there he plots the next move forward, one square at a time. And the chessboard itself reveals another eternal truth. Not every piece can be saved. Not every plan can be preserved. Strategy demands sacrifice. A pawn may be lost, a rook may fall. The queen may be cornered. Yet if clarity is maintained, if the greater vision is never abandoned, the game can still be won. So too in life, comfort must sometimes be surrendered, pride cut away, and even relationships released if they no longer serve growth. The ruthless strategist does not cling to what was. He accepts loss as part of progress. He lets go in order to advance. Because the world will not hand you peace, it will hand you trials. It will hand you storms, betrayals, losses, and chaos. But peace is not given, it is forged. It is earned in the silence of your discipline, in the steadiness of your choices. The ruthless strategist knows that victory is not found in avoiding hardship, but in facing it head-on, moving with precision, and refusing to be broken. The storms will always come. That is the nature of life. But storms cannot drown the one who has anchored himself in reason, who has prepared his mind to rise above emotion and act with clarity. This is where philosophy becomes a weapon, and discipline becomes armor. You stop waiting for calm seas, and instead you master the art of sailing through the waves. So when others panic, you plan. When others cling, you release. When others fall to despair, you rise with determination. This is what makes you dangerous. Not cruelty, not indifference, but clarity. You no longer move as a victim of the storm, but as its equal, adapting, enduring, and pressing forward. And in this mastery of yourself, you discover the greatest power of all, the power to remain unshaken no matter what the world brings. Life will hand you fragments, not guarantees. It is up to you to shape them into a strategy. Eliminate self-pity, the most dangerous enemy of all. Self-pity is the silent poison that seeps into the mind, weakening the spirit and eroding the will. It whispers in moments of struggle. Why me? Why has life been so cruel? But this lament is nothing more than the language of surrender. To indulge in self-pity is to abandon the fight before the first strike is even made. A ruthless strategist, one who rebuilds himself and forges destiny, wastes no time blaming fate or wearing the mask of a victim. Instead, he takes every challenge as raw material for strength. The Stoics knew this well. They understood life as unpredictable, merciless, and indifferent to human wishes. To demand fairness from existence is to demand winter turn warm or storms turn gentle. Nature simply is. The true battlefield lies only within the mind, where justice, strength, and choice remain. Epictetus, born into slavery, endured chains and humiliations that would break most men. Yet he did not drape himself in the cloak of a victim. He saw suffering as the forge of greatness. His chains were not the prison self-pity would have been, and he refused to step inside. The greatest enemy, then, is not poverty, not pain, not betrayal, but the seduction of self-pity. For once the mind accepts the narrative of being wronged, it abandons its power to fight, to adapt, to rise. It is always easier to blame society, family, or fate than to face the unflinching truth that our response is always our choice. Self-pity convinces us that we are powerless. The Stoic warrior, however, destroys this illusion. He demands mastery over himself even when the world strips away all else. Epictetus declared, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That single truth, simple yet eternal, exposes the hollowness of self-pity. Events carry no blessing or curse until filtered through the mind's judgment. To wallow is not instinct, it is surrender. To endure, to rise, to convert hardship into strength, this too is a choice. The ruthless strategist, like the Stoic sage, knows the reaction is everything. Where others see canes, he sees a whetstone for character. Where others collapse, he uncovers an invitation to cultivate resilience. The world does not care what you endured, it will only remember how you stood. Consider the athlete struck down by a devastating injury. The first impulse is despair. The body broken, the dream shattered, the path to glory derailed. Most curse fate, drown in bitterness, and let recovery rot into hopelessness. Yet another road exists, the Stoic's road, the Strategist's road. That same athlete can decide to turn recovery into training of the mind, to strengthen what remains unbroken, the will, the intellect, the inner discipline. Instead of lamenting what cannot be done, he can study, master new techniques, reflect on life's deeper lessons. When the body heals, he rises not as one merely restored, but as one reborn, a warrior sharpened by fire, armed with weapons beyond the physical. This is the art of erasing self-pity, turning loss into hidden advantage, forging victory from pain. Self-pity blinds us to opportunity, courage uncovers it. Where the victim cries, "Why me?" the strategist demands, "What now?" And in that shift of language lies the power to rebuild. Worse still, self-pity is infectious. It spreads like a plague, infecting homes, teams, and entire communities. One voice of complaint can poison the spirit of many, draining energy, breeding resentment, and multiplying despair. In contrast, a single individual who refuses self-pity and endures with strength can ignite courage in countless others. This is why the Stoic warrior carries a duty beyond himself. He becomes a pillar for all who look to him. To abandon the victim's mask is to stand as a beacon of discipline in a world addicted to excuses. The modern age, though far from the Roman Empire or the slave markets where Epictetus once endured, is saturated with temptations to collapse into self-pity. Social media magnifies comparison, making another's victory feel like your defeat. The culture of grievance offers sympathy and applause for weakness, but rarely solutions. Yet sympathy without transformation is poison. It rewards fragility and chains us tighter to the role of the wronged. To reject self-pity today requires the same iron will as it did 2,000 years ago. It demands the courage to turn from the chorus of complaints and embrace the solitary silence of mental rebuilding. The strategist knows energy is currency. Every moment wasted in pity is stolen from preparation, growth, and decisive action. His question is never, "Who hurt me?" but "How can this sharpen me?" Setbacks are not evidence of injustice, but opportunities to map terrain, gather intelligence, and prepare for a stronger strike. This mindset is merciless only toward weakness, the urge to collapse, to whine, to surrender power. Thus, killing self-pity is not cruelty, but respect for the soul. It is the recognition that your spirit deserves freedom, and freedom is earned through responsibility. The Stoic warrior does not deny pain or pretend wounds are nothing. He honors the pain by wielding it as a forge for strength, refusing to waste it on tears. Transform it into discipline, vision, and strength. To kill self-pity is to reclaim sovereignty over the self. Life will wound you, that is certain. It will strip illusions, betray expectations, and hurl suffering without warning. But every blow carries a choice. Will you collapse into the role of the victim, or will you rise as the warrior who cannot be broken? Epictetus chose the latter. The athlete rebuilding his mind in recovery chooses the latter. And you, standing at the crossroads between despair and determination, must also choose. The true enemy is not the world outside, but the weakness within. Self-pity is that weakness. Destroy it and you walk the way of the Stoic warrior, the path of unyielding strength, ruthless clarity, and a life built not on complaints but on courage. Forge yourself into a sharp weapon. This is not poetic decoration, it is a command. Life is raw metal, and it will remain dull until shaped by your will. The furnace of hardship, the hammer of discipline, and the anvil of reflection are not punishments, but tools. Through them, you strike yourself into form. The image of the weapon is not violence, but clarity, precision, readiness. A strategist cannot wait for fortune's kindness or destiny's favor. Hesitation is surrender, dullness is death. To survive reality's first blow, you must already be steel. Thus, the warrior embraces heat, embraces pressure, and welcomes the grind of forging. Seneca, writing to Lucilius, urged the rehearsal of poverty, to deliberately walk into discomfort so that when real hardship arrives, terror finds no foothold. The lesson is not masochism, it is mastery. It is mastery. To strip away luxuries is to discover that the human spirit is far stronger than the velvet cage of comfort allows. When you deny yourself excess, you do not lose richness, you rediscover it. You taste the iron of your own will. A A strategist who practices such restraint holds a power that no wealth can purchase, for it is sovereignty over the self. Contrast him with the ordinary man drowning in indulgence. His evenings dissolved in entertainment, his days paid for by coins that could have purchased his freedom. He does not see the subtle chains coiling around him, chains of debt, appetite, and craving. But the man who embraces minimalism sees clearly. He declares, "For this month I will live on essentials. I will eat simply. I will spend nothing unnecessary. I will silence distractions." From this experiment does not emerge poverty, but strength. He learns he can endure discomfort without breaking. He realizes worth is not counted in possessions, and that freedom arrives not by wealth's increase but by the death of dependence upon it. This man becomes blade-like, lean, direct, unyielding. The forging is never gentle. Ore does not become steel without fire. Steel does not become sword without hammer. So too must the strategist embrace trial. He rises before comfort allows, training until sweat becomes his master. He studies not when inspired, but when duty commands expansion. He restrains himself not because temptation vanished, but because he chose mastery. Each act of discipline is a hammer's strike. Each denial of excess, a blow shaping the edge. In time, the formless mass of distraction becomes a weapon capable of cutting through confusion. The Stoic warrior does not despise pleasure. He simply refuses to kneel before it. For the man who kneels before pleasure loses command of himself, and he who loses command of himself is already conquered. The slave of pleasure cannot know freedom, but the strategist is never its servant. He can enjoy a fine meal, yet he is equally content with bread and water. He can walk through golden halls, yet he sleeps beneath the open sky without complaint. This adaptability is not weakness, it is supreme strength. For fortune cannot intimidate the man who has rehearsed both abundance and poverty. Seneca's call to practice hardship is not cruelty, but training. Only he who has faced deprivation without fear can enjoy wealth without dependence. Thus the strategist sharpens not only body and mind, but soul itself, until no loss can shatter him, and no gift can corrupt him. There is profound freedom in knowing your identity is not chained to circumstance. When markets collapse, when nations tremble, when the ground beneath most men cracks with uncertainty, the forged strategist stands calm. He has already endured little. Scarcity does not frighten him. He has already disciplined his body. Fatigue does not break him. He has already disciplined his mind. Panic does not deceive him. His strength is not borrowed. It burns from within. That is the essence of forging, to carry the inner fire that no storm, no betrayal, no shift of fortune can extinguish. But forging is more than self-preservation. It is duty. A strategist who dulls his blade with laziness betrays not only himself, but all who depend upon his strength. When a father collapses because he lacked discipline, the family suffers. When a leader indulges in comfort, the community crumbles. Weakness is not a private failure, it spreads. Therefore, the Stoic warrior prepares not merely for his own survival, but for the greater battles of life. His sharpened edge becomes a shield for others. His will, disciplined and unwavering, becomes stability for those around him. Yet he remembers always, forging is not a single act but a lifelong practice. The blade unused or neglected will rust, no matter how sharp it once was. Every day he must return to the fire. Every day he must feel the hammer strike. Every day he must sharpen his edge anew. This is mastery, not in dominating others, but in refusing to be conquered by himself. It is the path of the human being who through discipline, knowledge, endurance, and humility transforms into something unbreakable. He ceases to be raw iron tossed by circumstance and becomes a blade that cuts through confusion, fear, and weakness. He no longer asks life for ease, for he knows that ease softens and deceives. Instead, he asks for strength to endure hardship, clarity to see through illusions, and steadiness to remain upright when all else collapses. This is why the Stoics call us to train daily, to temper ourselves as a smith tempers steel. Each denial of luxury, each hour of study, each repetition of discipline is a spark rising from the forge. These sparks may seem small, but together they illuminate a life of mastery. The weapon forged in this way does not gleam for vanity. It gleams because it has been tested, sharpened, and proven. And when fate strikes, as it always does, it finds no fragile vessel to shatter. It meets instead a warrior, sharpened by struggle, unbroken by loss, unmoved by temptation. Such a person does not boast of victory over others. His greatest victory is mastery over himself. That is the Stoic's revenge against chaos, the strategist's answer to destiny, to live in such a way that no circumstance can enslave the soul. Your blood boils. The urge to strike back instantly is overwhelming, yet this is the very moment the strategist trains for. You pause, you breathe, you remind yourself, this insult, this moment, is not power, it is only a test. To respond in anger is to let another man's weakness dictate your strength. To remain steady, to answer not with heat but with clarity, is to seize the higher ground. In that silence, in that measured response, you reveal mastery. This is the difference between living as raw ore and living as a sharpened blade. Ore reacts to every blow. It cracks, it bends, it shatters. But the blade, forged in fire and hammered into form, does not flinch. It cuts through chaos with precision. When you control your emotions as you control your pieces, you stop being moved like a pawn by circumstance and begin to move like the strategist who shapes the entire game. And here lies the Stoic paradox. By restraining yourself, you gain greater power. By refusing to let anger, fear, or vanity drive your decisions, you become the one who drives outcomes. To the untrained, this looks like indifference, but to the disciplined, it is the essence of freedom. For who is freer, the man who lashes out when provoked, or the man who remains unshaken, answering only with what serves his strategy and purpose? He knows that giving into fury in a meeting might win a moment of satisfaction, but lose years of trust, credibility, or opportunity. He knows that the loudest voice in the room is rarely the strongest, and that the one who can remain calm while others unravel is the one who ultimately dictates the pace of the game. The ruthless strategist weighs every move not by how it feels in the moment, but by what it builds in the lawmark of time. This is why Stoicism demands training, not the training of the body first, but of the mind. Each insult, each frustration, each betrayal becomes an exercise. Will you let this break your balance, or will you use it as resistance to strengthen your control? Like a sword that sharpens only through contact with stone, the mind becomes precise only through repeated discipline against difficulty. The great mistake is believing composure is weakness. But what is stronger? The fist that strikes out in impulse, or the man who feels the surge of rage and holds it in his hand like a weapon he chooses not to use until the moment is right? Power is not in reaction. Power is in restraint, in timing, in the ability to decide when and how you move. That is true mastery. So when life places you in a position where your pride is tested, remember this. You are not just a man living through moments, you are a strategist playing the long game. Every reaction is a move on the board. Every silence, every word, every decision is shaping your kingdom, your future, your destiny. Do not play as a pawn when you are meant to think as the king. And this is where the true transformation begins. Every delay before you speak, every pause before you act, every breath taken in awareness is a declaration of sovereignty over yourself. You are proving that nothing outside of you can dictate the rhythm of your soul. The more you practice this, the more unshakable you become. People will notice, not because you told them, but because your presence itself becomes unnerving. You will embody the quiet force that makes others second-guess their own chaos. The ruthless strategist is not feared because of aggression, but because of his calm unpredictability. Rage can be measured, predicted, and countered. But silence, restraint, and clarity cannot be manipulated. They disarm without striking, and they win without noise. Your enemies, your critics, and even in your doubts will eventually tire themselves out striking against your stillness. And when they do, you'll still be there, focused, grounded, untouchable. So train daily, write like Marcus wrote, reflect like Epictetus demanded. Discipline yourself, as Seneca advised. Let each day sharpen your clarity until you no longer react as the old version of yourself once did. You will still feel the storm, but you will not steer by it. You will stand where others collapse. You will see the game from above when others are trapped in the noise of each move. This is how you rebuild yourself, with the mind of a ruthless strategist, a mind unbroken by anger, unshaken by fear, and unchained from the illusions of pride. A mind that does not chase approval, but commands respect. A mind that does not seek revenge, because it already understands. The greatest victory is not in defeating others, but in conquering yourself. Not ruled by the moment, but mastering it. Rebuilding yourself begins now, not by shutting down emotion, but by seeing it clearly. True strength is never the absence of feeling, it is the command of it. Like a warrior sharpening his blade or a strategist adjusting his plan, you train not to fight meaningless battles, but to earn peace through discipline. So when emotion rises like a storm inside you, remind yourself, this is your move. The board belongs to you. The war is not out there. It is within, and victory comes not by conquering others, but by mastering yourself. Rebuilding is not about creating a softer, easier version of who you are. It is about forging an unshakable, disciplined mind. One that does not break under pressure, but stands rooted in the Stoic virtues: reason, virtue, resilience. This path is not about comfort, but about clarity. Not about escaping hardship, but about facing it with strength, not weakness. From now on, treat life as a chessboard. Every decision is a move that matters. Cast aside self-pity. Discipline your body. Govern your emotions. Always play the long game. That is how you rise, not only as a person, but as a Stoic warrior. If this message spoke to you, carry it forward. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next step on the Stoic path. And always remember, the battle is within, the war is daily, and the warrior is you. Keep going. Your next chapter begins right here.